I'm Amelia. You can also call me AIMS. I have a company called FinAIMS. Wow, it's my name. And we help people to reach their financial aims, their financial goals. And one of those aims is not to be poor. Okay, so over to Hann. Hann, could you tell us something quirky about yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Hann, founder and currently director at RinggitPlus. Not many people know this, but actually, I was right today. At RinggitPlus, we try and help the consumer with their personal finances online. But I used to be on the other side of the fence, so my past history was an evil investment banker.
You're evil like me.
Mm-hmm. And even worse, like we were part of the whole machine that actually caused the crisis in 2007. For those people who remember the crisis in 2007, that was us. So that's something not so quirky, but probably a bit dark.
So it's what you repenting now, is it?
Yeah, but now so I left the dark side of the force basically. So.
Yeah, that's great. So over to you, Ken. Tell us something quirky about yourself.
Morning, AIMS, and thanks, Co-labs, for putting this together. Great to be on a panel like this with Hann and Aisha. And so my name's Ken. I'm the country manager of StashAway. StashAway is a robo-advisor or a digital fund manager. Basically, we help people manage their wealth, and we invest on their behalf so that they can achieve their financial goals. Something quirky is that I used to do a lot of marathons and triathlons. And after I got married and I already caught the girl, I stopped doing all of that. So it's more Netflix and chill now. And
I don't see you packing on the pounds yet.
Metabolism is still good, fortunately. Yeah, but I also used to be an investment banker, and I used to be with Khazanah as well. So I know what it's like going from the dark side, but it's good now. It's you're dealing with the retail public.
I know, right? Great. So, thanks, Ken. Aisha, could you tell us something strange about yourself?
I'm not entirely sure if it's strange, but hello, everybody. Welcome to the session, and congratulations on taking the time to invest in your knowledge. I'm really glad you're all here. Well, I actually have a real passion for motorbikes. I love motorbiking, and I actually spent a whole month working remotely while motorbiking through Vietnam. So I had my backpack with my laptop. And I would work remotely, and then I would just basically plan my route. And I travel all the way to the north and the south of Vietnam over 1 month while working remotely, earning and saving.
And I'm sure Ken and Han are very jealous about that one.
I can't ride a bike, but I'm willing to learn. Maybe I'm going to quad bike behind you.
Han, can you ride a bike? Because I can.
I can't.
Even if I could, my wife wouldn't let me. So.
Oh, whoa!
I told my mum. I told her after the 1 month. You know, I said, by the way, Mum, I was on a motorbike this whole month. Then she got angry at me.
So 2 motorbikers in the room. All right, you guys got to do something. So let's get to the questions. Okay, we have today 7 questions that would cover the topic of personal finance, and we hope that you guys, the audience, would be able to ask more questions in there as well. So the first question is this: 1 out of 10 Malaysians believe they're not disciplined in managing their money. That's like a whooping 90% say, I don't know anything about money. Now, this I'm sure is very bad for the people and the country, right? So maybe I'm going to ask all of you, what are some steps these individuals can take to manage their money better so that they'll have enough cushion for times like COVID-19? That's really quite bad, you know, because some of my friends have lost their jobs and had huge pay cuts. Yeah, maybe Han, you could start first.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's quite a scary statistic, right? And, at RinggitPlus, we do a lot of these kind of internal surveys as well. And what we find out are also equally scary stuff. Stuff like, more than half of Malaysians don't have enough savings to last them over 3 months without income. 85% of Malaysians don't have enough to retire on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, like most people, assume it's some really hard, very mathematical, technical thing. But if you just boil down into simple steps that people can follow, most people will be able to follow it, right? And I like to boil it down into managing your money, right? Or looking after your financial health into 3 simple steps, right? Even before you start like thinking about retirement, investing, all that stuff. And the 3 simple steps are the following I like to think. The first is to know your situation first, right? And this changes, right? It changes even before COVID happened. But now that COVID's happened, it changes, right? So you need to know the situation. It's not just losing your job. It's actually, have you lost any expenses? I mean, I heard Aisha talk earlier about how she's saving a heap of money because she's not traveling anymore. So your expenses have changed. So you got to know your situation. What's coming in, what's going out. Those have changed, right? And once you identify what's higher than whether one is higher than the other, it's about making step 2, the painless savings in life. Painless meaning you do exactly what you want to do and still make savings, right? So you can still go out and eat what you want, but maybe you change the way you pay and make some savings, right? You go out, you go and buy whatever you want, but change what you're using to buy rather than what you're buying, and you make those painless savings. And that can kind of switch the balance between how much you're spending or saving. And third, when it comes down to it, is if you still feel that you're not able to save and not able to manage, it's time to make those painful savings. There's the stuff that your mom tells you about, the stuff that the gurus tell you about. Oh, cut your daily coffees. Don't go out and don't go out so much and cook more. So step 1, know yourself. Step 2, make the painless stuff happen, and then 3, make the painful savings. That's how I like to think about it.
Great, thanks for that, Han. I'd like to ask Ken now, what does he think about what people can do to, ensure? I think we really need to start thinking about savings. Yeah.
Yeah. I think revisiting the fundamentals hasn't been more important than now because of the financial insecurity that we face. I think also learning about anything, you really need a easy framework. So I quite like what Han has said about managing your money. When it comes to investing, the main way we think about it is that there's 3 main parts again, right? Again, 3 main things. But I would add that on to what Han said earlier, is that don't go through life collecting financial products. Don't go out there and get your friend to recommend you unit trust, or talk to your friend's auntie who has insurance, or you go into a bank and then the branch manager sells you more products and credit cards. So you have to be a little bit more structured. So the way we like to think about it is that there's 3 ways to think about investing. The first one is wealth accumulation, meaning you just want to grow your capital. Second one is cash management. What are you doing for your idle cash, your spare cash lying around? And the third one is yield generation. Let's say, you want a stable income as you approach retirement, or you pass retirement. So that's just mainly 3 phases. And then what goes along with those 3 things. So it's wealth accumulation, there's cash management, and then there's yield generation.
Okay, thanks for that, Ken. A little bit technical. We'll now go to Aisha, who's probably going to be able to tell us in real layman terms about how we can really start saving and prepare for events like now.
I mean, I think for me personally, I speak from a perspective of somebody who, I worked in the debt department, and I saw people who are very wealthy who didn't manage their savings or their finances get into bad financial situations. So you could have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the basic foundations, which I'm going to talk you through right now, you could easily, within the click of a finger, as COVID has showed us, be in financial difficulty. So I say first things first. Write this down, guys, if you have a pen. Have your emergency fund. Pen, paper. First things first, write down. You must have an emergency fund before anything else, because when you don't have an emergency fund, you are the victim of anything around you that can change quite suddenly. So write down. First, you have an emergency fund. Secondly, you need to pay off any high interest debt. Because if you have a lot of debt, no matter how much you save, all that money is being pumped into your debt. So any high interest debt, like your credit card, we're going to talk to you after this about how to do that. So step number 2, pay off any high interest debt. You've done that. Dah, you're ready, you're settled. You're like, okay, dah, what dah? Okay, now step 3. I would advise you to follow the 50-20-30 rule. 50% of your money should be on your bills that you need to survive, at least 20% on your savings, and 30% on your wants. I use this really, really good free tool called Money Lover. You can download the app, it's free, and it allows you to track your expenses. So set up a spreadsheet, put 50-20-30, and if you're not saving at least 20% on that spreadsheet or on your app, then you need to reprioritize your expenses. And finally, step number 4, once you've done those 3 steps, then I would look around and monetize your existing skills by creating a side hustle. But a lot of people, they're like, what do I start with? How do I begin? Start with the emergency fund, pay off your debt, 50-20-30 rule, then you can start your side hustle. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Aisha. That really brings us to our next question when you talk about a side hustle. So Hann was saying just now that about 50% of people, of Malaysians, don't have enough savings beyond 3 months. Actually, it's worse. It's like only 24% can do it. The rest of them are really dismal in the way that they manage money. So perhaps one of the things that we could do is to have a secondary income. So, Aisha, you talked about that. Maybe you could tell us what are some of the ways individuals can start this second income number 2.
Absolutely. And I think before this, I used to work in banking for just over 8 years. I had the perception that a side income or online job was a scam. I was very nervous. I said, is this possible? Can I do it? But coming from somebody who left her banking job while becoming a freelance editor, virtual assistant, blogging, I earn money from my blog. Here are some examples of things you can do. If you're creative, you can get into graphic design, sign up on Upwork or Fiverr, for example. If you want to sell handmade goods, become an Etsy seller. If you like social media manager. I get approached all the time, and you can charge between $600 to $1,000 a month just for one client to be a social media manager. You could become a stock image photographer. I know we don't have much time, so I'm sure you guys can Google these terms or come and approach me after what they are. If you have analytical skills, you can become a freelance translator. You can become a proofreader. I climbed up to Everest Base Camp as a freelance proofreader. Okay, I would hike for 8 hours and then I would edit, and that paid for my entire trip. You can become...
That's amazing.
It's doable, guys. If if I can edit, and I'm not particularly amazing, if I can edit documents and climb to Everest Base Camp, I'm really short, I have short legs, then you can do it too. There's no reason why you can't.
We haven't seen you, not sure about our short legs.
Finally, also, if you have communication skills, I worked as an online teacher, and you can earn, obviously at the beginning, your earning potential won't be as much, but at my peak, I'm giving figures not to show off, but I want you guys to know it's possible. Like, as somebody who works in banking, if people are very waffly and say, you can do it, how much can I earn? So I earned at my peak, around $6,000 a month as an online teacher. So what I'm saying is, guys, also if you have numeracy skills, virtual bookkeeper, write down your skills, write down your passions, Google the jobs related to that skills, and create your side hustle.
Okay, thanks, Aisha. Hann, do you think you could share with us something that you would know?
Yeah, for sure. I think you mentioned like kind of secondary sources of income, and one way is to do the side hustle. I think the key thing that most people forget is that there are two things that make money, right? And I think I'll pass to Ken after this. What Aisha was talking about was time making money. So your time is worth money, right? Meaning, you work 9 to 5, you build certain skill sets. Can you use those skill sets to make more money after the 9 to 5? I think those things are very relevant. But one thing a lot of people forget is that also money makes money.
Correct.
Right? Which is having money. If you don't do anything with it, just like your time, is a waste of money, right? So I think. And most people think of it as investments. That's one way to look at it. And investments can mean many things. And I'll probably just pass to Ken then, because, but the thing for people to remember is there are two things that can make you money. Time makes money, i.e. the time you spend on something. But money also makes money. And I think that, I'll pass to Ken on more of that one.
So Ken, could you tell us how money makes money?
Yeah, obviously, like I said before, there's three main ways you should understand investing, right? Because when people think investing, they think I go all in, right? I go red or black, Chinese New Year, I silang everything, or I buy 4D, right? That's or I pick a stock, right? There's just one stock that I don't know anything about, and someone told me it was good, it's gonna go to the moon. So like things like this is not investing. That's just trading, or that's just gambling, right? So again, coming back to wealth management, right? It's wealth accumulation. There's cash management and yield management. So when you talk about your emergency fund, I think having like money lying around, not earning anything or earning very low interest is essentially a sin. So put your spare money to work. There's a very, very low risk ways of doing so. Let's say you have an emergency fund that can last you 3 to 6 months. It doesn't mean that it just has to sit there. It means that with a little bit of planning and some risk, you can actually earn more than nothing. So for the easiest way is FDs, obviously, but that locks you in. The thing I want you guys to look at is things like bond funds and also money market funds. These are things that don't normally get marketed by unit trust agents because the commissions are not as high. Honestly, because the sales charge on bond funds are very low, and there's no sales charge on money market funds
at all.
So money market funds earn you a little bit, like let's say 2.5% to 3%, bond funds 4 to 5 to 6%. So these are ways to put your spare cash to work.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. So as a person, I'm a licensed financial planner, so I'm on both sides. I help my consultants earn money. I help my clients make money. So like what Ken was saying about consultants that don't help their clients to do bond funds or money market, my team, we do a lot of that. In fact, that's, I would say, a big part of our business. So yeah, and back to Aisha, what you said about secondary income. So I would like to invite those that are financially savvy or interested in finance to maybe join my team. So that's how you can also make money, because dealing with clients does not have to be on a full-time basis. Okay, so let's move to the third question, which actually I think Ken already said something about, should we use emergency funds for investments, or should it be strictly a separate fund away from investments? Perhaps we'll ask, well, actually Ken has answered that question. Maybe I'm going to ask Aisha if, what do you think?
So, sorry, I thought we were going to ask Ken, so I didn't really...
Yeah, I know, but he already gave his view on he thinks it's okay. So what's your view?
Should you use your emergency funds? Is that what you're asking?
No. Should you use your emergency funds for investments, or rather you just separate it like in cash? In something not invested.
I can only share what I do, right? And I'm just somebody who has obviously seen people get in debt and also had to save really hard. So I had to pay for my education myself in the UK. So I had to have emergency funds. What I do is, my step one is I put it in a fixed deposit account, right? Now, but you want your money to be an employee. You want your money to work for you. Then, to be quite honest, a small amount, I would put it in places which are like StashAway. I think StashAway is amazing because it allows people to invest on a small scale and the barrier to entry is low. But a large portion of that I would keep quite safe. But when you look at StashAway and you look at other products like MyTheo, Wahid Invest, I particularly like StashAway because they have more exposure to the US market. So if you look at the products and you look at how they spread out their exposure and the performance, look at what you're investing in. But my advice is, when you invest, the question you ask, how can I get my money back? And how long will it take me to get my money back? If you do not understand an investment, don't invest. I always say this. My background is law. I always ask. And I'm going to ask StashAway, I'm going to ask Ken later about this. But how can I get my money back? Be very clear. Here's my money. How can I get it back? And how long will it take me to get my money back? If you're clear and you know, then maybe you can put a portion of your emergency fund towards it.
I mean, don't mind if I just say something really quickly, but like, I think pre-COVID, I would have said, hey, you know what, just stick it in a liquid investment, go for it. Emergency cash, as long as you can access it anytime. That's why it's an emergency. But I think a slightly kind of controversial, contrarian view here is that for what you consider emergency, I would keep it at home. Weird thing to say for a finance guy, but in a situation where you aren't able to go out for whatever reason, right? But you still need to spend money. You got to keep some of it at home, right? And that's kind of totally against what we've been talking about the last 20 minutes. But the reality is, cash and physical cash is still a key part of legal tender here in Malaysia. And in this kind of strange emergency, this is a very strange emergency, unlike any we've seen before. You can't actually go out, or you want to minimize the time of you going out, including going to a bank, withdrawing things. So for me, the definition of emergency cash, I think we need to expand that to all kinds of emergencies, not just financial emergencies. I think emergencies may include this kind of pandemic-related ones, right? So kind of contrarian a bit, I'd say keep whatever you deem to be an emergency as liquid as you can, right? And with that principle, in this particular emergency, cash would have been the way to go.
Excellent. We find new things all the time, especially when situations changes. So I think people are facing a lot of expenses or pay cuts that will probably increase the demand of personal loan and even credit card debts. What are your thoughts about this increase, and how can individuals reduce that? I'm going to ask Aisha what you think, and then I'll ask Hann. Yeah.
I think Hann's website is amazing. I've been through it, and his website is actually going to help me explain how you're going to do it. Now, credit card debt. So imagine you're sitting here and you have multiple credit cards, and you're trying to pay off this debt, and you're feeling overwhelmed. This is what you should do. There are 0% balance transfer credit cards. These are credit cards that basically they charge you 0% for maybe 12 months. And you're like, why? Why is the bank charging me 0? Because it's an introductory rate to entice people to join them. So if you go on Hann's website, I Googled it, he's got a really good list. The best 0% balance transfer card. Take your credit cards, move it to these 0% balance transfer credit cards, because you can then throw money at your debt without interest accruing, okay? So, I mean, I'm not just recommending him, but I've recommended him before to my other clients, but I would first of all do that. Secondly, let's say you've done that, you can't do that. The average credit card interest rate is what? Like, different countries are different.
17,
18%, right? What's the average interest rate on a personal loan in Malaysia?
6 maybe?
Right. So if you can transfer that credit card into a personal loan with lower interest, that's also an option if you can do that. I would opt for 0% balance if you can. Then second step, you could go and get a personal loan. Thirdly, and this is really kind of the principles of you don't ask, you don't get. When I worked in the bank, some customers would call me up, and instead of saying, hello, I've reduced my rate, and hang up, be nice and say, hey guys, I've been a loyal customer with you for 10 years. I have products with you. I will continue to bank with you. My sister's uncle's brother banks with you. Can you reduce my rate? Just asking the question, right? You don't ask, you don't get. And finally, I know that in Malaysia we have a free debt counseling service called, was it
KPK?
Right. Take advantage of these guys, because I used to work in a free counseling service in the UK and in New Zealand, and I know Malaysia's one's particularly good too. Yeah. Take advantage of the free resources out there. I mean, I don't know if Malaysia has this, but when I was in the UK, I would have to write legal letters for free on behalf, as a service to the government on behalf of this customer. I would write to the creditors and I would make them reduce their interest rate for the customer. If you have the backing of a strong organization behind you to help you reduce your debt, you can look into that. So step 1, 0% balance transfer. Step 2, look into a lower interest personal loan. Step 3, try and renegotiate. Step 4, look into free resources, debt counseling services out there. And use Hann's website, RinggitPlus.
Excellent.
Thanks so much for the kind words, Aisha.
I think, yeah. So, Hann, maybe you don't need to speak anymore.
I know I've got my next kind of ambassador right here. I guess just a couple of things to add, right? Which is, again, more contrarian stuff, right? Most people know household debt to the GDP in Malaysia is pretty high, 82.7%, end of last year. But most people don't know that actually the large majority is in property. So in property loans and home loans. So that's kind of something to keep in mind, that it's not just the credit cards and the personal loans that it's adding a huge amount to Malaysians' household debt level. I think with debt, it's a very dangerous kind of thing to just say we should have zero debt, we should reduce it. I think the key to understand is that debt is like fire, right? Like, it's very useful, but it can burn you. So, the first thing to remember is to think about what you're using debt for. Why are you taking debt on for? If it's an income generating, purpose, so let's say I need to take on debt to buy a new car so I can drive, Grab with, or maybe I need to invest in education so then I can upskill myself. I need some debt to kind of invest in a new course or something. Then you probably want to increase your debt level. We have to say. But if it's to further cause, or to generate asset value, then I think that's the kind of thing that you want to take debt for. If the reason why you're taking debt is to cover expenses, then that's a complete wrong reason to do it, and you should be looking to reduce debt. I think that's the kind of angle to look at first.
So, do you have an advice on when people take on debt to get assets? Like, maybe they shouldn't get an asset that's too big for them to manage? Should interest rates go up?
Yeah. So I think this is starting to get technical, but as long as that asset returns you on a risk adjusted and kind of time weighted basis, more than the debt cost, then that makes total sense to get it regardless of the amount, right? Because the asset will pay for the debt. Just make sure you do all your risk calculations. But I think once you establish that I want to take on debt, it's far more important to go through that hierarchy that Aisha's kindly described, right? Which is low interest to high interest hierarchy. Do not go high to low, go low to high, meaning start with EPP stuff first if you need to buy something. Do a balance transfer if you need to buy something but can't pay back over time. Then go down the list of, okay, all the cheap debt's been taken care of. I need to look at slightly more expensive one. Don't go straight to a personal loan, right? There are other options. If you've got a mortgage, home loan, you can do a top-up loan. Why? Because mortgage rates are typically a lot lower than personal loans and certainly credit cards. So you go down that hierarchy and it's quite easy to look at it. And the fact is, most people can read a number, right? 0 is lower than 3, which is lower than 6, which is lower than 15, right? Go for 0 before you go for 3, and then 6, and then 15. So that's kind of two ways to look at it.
Yeah. Since we're talking about properties, let's go to question 6. The overnight policy rate has been cut and probably will be cut again in July. It now stands at 2. And I think that encouraged a lot of property investments. What are some of the criteria to consider before you invest in property in this current situation, or maybe just any criteria in any situation? And also the second one is whether you should opt out of the loan deferment if you already have a property. So maybe Hann, since you're on it, to answer that as well.
Sure. I think with the loan deferment, there was a heap of hoo-ha, right? But in short, too long didn't read, take the deferment. If you need it, you're going to take it anyway, so you're going to take it. You don't need my advice. If you don't need it, I think the key thing to remember is the government has come out and said this a lot of times. Bank Negara has come out and said this a lot of times. The Association of Banks in Malaysia has come out and said it a lot of times. Interest on things that you defer will not compound. And that's a very important statement, right? Which means if you have savings interest which compounds, but loan deferments which don't compound, you get a little bit from the fact that there's a little arbitrage for the savvy investor or savvy finance person out there, right? Which is all things equal, if you've got something that compounds versus something that doesn't compound, you're going to save more than you would lose in interest. And then you can buy yourself a lunch or something with that little you make.
So you're saying that, whatever that you defer and that's not growing larger, right? And
that's
if
right.
You have something that's maybe giving you 3 or 4%, for example, or 6, then you would have a little bit of difference that will just make more sense, right?
The statement here is all things equal. So if you're able to save at the rate that you borrow, one compounds, one doesn't compound, take the one that compounds, right? So take the deferment. If you can afford to not take it, you should still take it, right? Put it in some savings rate which you can find, which is similar to your borrowing rate. And the fact that it compounds makes you money, right? So that's too long didn't read. But in terms of property, I would wait, not because, I'm trying to be a property guru or anything out here, but the fact of the matter is that this loan moratorium is stretched out to September. It might go longer, but if it ends at September, that's a lot of kind of, all things equal, everyone's just going to hold on now because there's no need to repay my loan. This will allow most people to hold on to their assets. So if you thought you could get a quick, easy, purchase of a property or business that you would not previously, and because someone's in financial distress, this loan moratorium has just leveled the playing field till September. So I would wait. So. Yeah,
that's right. Okay, Ken, maybe you have something to say about that, like what to consider if investing in property.
Yeah, I think from the moratorium standpoint, I think you really have two choices, right? If you have a very minimalist debt approach, I think know what your bank is going to do if you choose to make the payment in this moratorium period, because for some banks all that money goes towards the principal. So ultimately when you come out of this 6 months, your overall principal is lower, and then your interest on that ultimately you'll pay less, because as the amortized loan goes less and less, basically you'll be paying less interest overall. So take this time to also pay down your debt if you want. What I have heard for people who are not particularly squeezed is they try and be very smart and they say that I can draw down from my loan, or I can avoid paying the loan because of the moratorium, and then I can play stocks, right? So for me, that doesn't sit very well because, like Hann said, it's all about risk adjusted, right? Like you are taking disproportionately or so much more risk because you're basically going to concentrate your assets in a few stocks, right? And it's on borrowed money. So if, let's say, you do want to eke out some returns, I would say, yeah, some bonds would be good, some bond funds, some savings funds, ultimately to get you close to what you're actually paying on that, on your mortgage.
Okay, I have something to say about investing in property. I noticed a lot of people talking to me, they'll always say, I want to buy my dream house. I can't wait to buy it. It's so beautiful. And because the property is a physical asset and they look at it and they salivate over it, what they tend to do is buy the most expensive house they can afford. And so that's very dangerous, in my opinion. Do not buy the most expensive house you can afford. If you could delay, that's even better, so that you never get yourself like this. And when the water goes up here, you drown. So try to look at the house as not so much the dream house. I know it's a lot of people say, hey, I worked so hard, I deserve something beautiful. But doing that might, make it very dangerous for you. So perhaps don't borrow as much as you can afford. But, think about whether if the interest rates go up, can you pay the extra? So maybe keep your debt not more than 30% of what you earn.
Yeah, I think, that's a really cool point, right? Because most people assume that, Malaysia's household debt, I said earlier, was due to credit cards, personal loans, all the kind of stuff. But actually the single most determinant of our nationwide household debt increasing has been overreaching on property. So I won't say we are at fault. That's just kind of a rude thing to say. I'd say, our behavior has caused that. It's not just, the availability of credit. It's the fact that we want things which are bigger and bigger beyond our capability, and we're being allowed to have it. So that's kind of two sides of that coin. So I completely agree with your statement.
Maybe we should have a tiny house movement. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, let's go to the next question. You want to say something, Aisha?
I think I completely understand about wanting a big house. I think the question is not that you can't have it, but not now,
that's
right? Like, for example, I always say when I'm making a spending decision, how could I optimize this? Is this something I can afford? So, let's say if you want to buy a house, I'm not saying that you can't have your dream house in the future, but I'm saying you need to work hard to get there. And I think we have somehow got into the situation where we want instant gratification.
That's correct,
but what's really gratifying is retiring and having your mortgage paid off, right?
Absolutely, and not ever having to worry about that, because people retire right now at 60 years old and go like, you mean I still have loans to pay for my house? Yes, because you took the loan to age 70, right? So that's shocking, and that's just something we should not do. Great point. Let's look at young investors. There has been an increase of young investors entering the Malaysian market in recent years. I'm sure you guys get this question a lot. Like, is this a good time to invest? And if yes, what are some of the investment portfolios or products that young investors should look at? Maybe with the pandemic in mind. And I'm just going to ask Ken.
Yeah. So I think young investors have a really big advantage in the sense that they have a lot of time to actually compound their money, learn something, make mistakes along the way, and ultimately get on the right footing. So with the pandemic, I think it's basically brought us back to square one in the sense that you have to know that risk is very important. We have a culture of where we only think about the reward. What is the reward? What is the reward? What is the return? What is the return? We almost beg to be lied to, because when you ask any unit trust agent, when you ask your banker, what is the return on this? They don't know. This is the future we're talking about. If you ask your advisor, what is the return on this? They have all sorts of things. Report says this, my guidance says this, but you're asking to be lied to because you're talking about the future. So understand the risk first, and then understand maybe some historical performance to think, okay, I'm taking X amount of risk. Is it proportionate to the projected return that I'm about to get? But don't think that return is something that is guaranteed. Nothing in life is really guaranteed, especially when you talk about investments. And also, when you come to the timing, investing in this market, I think because it's happened so fast in terms of the crash and then the subsequent rebound.
It's a very quick
rebound. A lot of people are feeling very, very FOMO about this, right? Which is why you're seeing rubber gloves going through the roof, right? So, so basically, there's never like the right time to invest. right? It's not like, oh guys, this is like a lunar eclipse. You should invest now or wait until 10 years before the next lunar eclipse happens.
Yeah.
It's basically changing your mindset to manage risk and then investing in a very scheduled and recurring manner. So if it wasn't for this crisis, there will be other smaller crises. This one is huge. This one is like once every 10 years or once in a lifetime, depending, right? But don't just think that all the risks will one day go away. You must know what the risks are, and then you must slowly make investments in a staggered and recurring manner so that you spread out your risk and you understand what you're investing in. If you look back at the long track record of equities and or stocks in the larger sense, you'll see that they always trend up, but it's only if you look at the 10 years, 15 years period that you are basically assured that you'll be up.
That's correct.
There's no one kind of like guaranteed investment that it's like, yeah, this will give you certain...
Can I just stop you here? And this is so important because Aisha said something about the risk.
Right.
So I think she wants to ask a question right now to you about that.
I feel like itchy, you know.
I know that. I can feel it from here.
Okay, so Ken, I think that's fantastic that you brought up the topic of risk. A lot of my readers, I'm going to talk about StashAway because it allows you to invest with, what's the minimum for StashAway?
$1
So we actually don't have a minimum. So I would say invest what you deem as appropriate.
Right.
Because we all know that if you go to an event and you get a free gift, you go home, you throw it away, right? So you do invest a few hundred, although we don't impose a minimum. Do invest something that you deem meaningful.
So let's just say I've invested 100 ringgit, and for me, I've worked hard for that 100 ringgit. Now, from somebody who worked in the debt department and also worked in law, as a lawyer in my background, I want to know with StashAway, if StashAway, first of all, where's my money going? Is it protected in a trust? Number two, if StashAway goes bankrupt, am I a priority or a non-priority creditor? The difference is, if you're priority, you get paid first. You stand in line, right? If you're non-priority, you have to wait behind all the secured creditors. So one, where's my money going if I invest in StashAway? Number two, in the event worst case scenario, we're talking about risk, right? What's going to happen to my money and how can I get it back? Will I get it back quickly?
Yeah, just to take a step back, I think it's good to be very skeptical about whatever you are investing in. Ask all these questions, right? To answer your questions head on, essentially, our money does go into a trust. Whatever you transfer to us goes into a trust, and then we have a custodian bank, which means it's a third party, and we actually cannot use this money to cover our business expenses. I can't use it to pay my rent. I can't use it to pay my salary. All of it goes to your investments and to withdraw when you're done. So upon bankruptcy, also, it's actually your money is actually not on our balance sheet because we don't use this money to actually pay off our creditors. That's definitely not the case. So whatever your investment is worth at that time, we will pay back to you. So there is no waiting in line. There is no creditors. Of course, there will be a process, right? And then we will liquidate the funds. And because we invest in very liquid instruments, we can also do that very quickly and return the money back to you. So it's not the case where it's like you're taking equity in a business and you have to wait in line with other creditors. Whatever your money is worth at that point in time will be returned to you in whole. So just to take a step back as well, I think what I was referring to and what I want to hammer home is actually the investment risk, because what we offer is actually 12 different portfolios of different risk levels. I don't come to you like an ice cream man and say I have a lot of flavors. Vietnam fund, China fund, India fund, no, look, it's all about risk. It's not about fads. It's not about what feels cool at the time, whether it's ESG or whether it's Islamic finance or it's about risk. What is the thing that will get you to the financial objective that you have in mind 5 years, 10 years from now?
So I think I would really like, I know Han, you're not supposed to answer this question, but I want you to answer this question. So young investors coming in, what should they be looking at for products maybe? It's something easy for them to start with.
No, I think, look, we've been talking about, investments, talking about StashAway as a vehicle, but if you go back to first principles, as a young person, I see a question as well, right? Ken mentioned it just now, which is you are in a great position. And actually, being young allows you to take more risks than being old. Here's what I mean, right? If I'm a 60-year-old, nearing retirement, right, and I want to take big risks, and that means potentially losing my principal, for a few years before it recovers. I can't wait those few years because I need to retire. I need to start using that money, right? If you're a university student, you're just starting out your job, you're looking to invest, that's the time to take the most risk, right? Obviously, it depends on your personal circumstance. I'm just saying all else equal. If you're a young person looking to invest, you can take far more risk than an old person nearing retirement who needs the money rather than looking to put the money in. So just keep that in mind. All else equal, as a young person, take more risk. Having said that, take more risk doesn't mean what they can say just now, sai lang, right? It means take more risk within all the good principles about diversification, about long-termism, right? You take risks within those frameworks, right? And I think if you invest in anyone, not just in StashAway, obviously, in a StashAway platform, you should make sure that any investment you make is for the time period that you're looking to invest, and that can adequately meet your risk appetite. So if you're a young person, and I just told you should take more risk, all else equal than an old person, make sure that you can do that.
Okay. I noticed there's a lot of questions on the meeting chat, but let's just wrap up our session. If there are one or two lessons that you guys learned during this pandemic, what is it from the financial perspective, please? Yeah. So who would like to go first? Yes, Ken.
For me, I think it's really about being adaptable and resilient because, in this time, things change very quickly. So when I say resilient, I mean revisit your fundamentals, right? Look at your emergency fund. If you don't have one, it's a good time to start. Your expenses are already reduced, so you can start an emergency fund. And then when I say resilient, I also mean, can your portfolio actually withstand shocks? If you invested in early March, you basically, at the worst case, your portfolio could be down 40%. And that's very hard to recover from, especially if you sold at the bottom. So don't chase the dragon. Just start from a very diversified standpoint and be able to weather the storm. So what I mean is that if the market goes down 40% and you're in a diversified portfolio and you go down 10, 15, 20%, that's actually not too bad because it's less than the market. So it allows you to hold on and invest when the market eventually recovered. So start well from day one. Be adaptable. What I mean by that is to really look at all the tools that are available at your exposure and then pick the thing that really suits you the best. Don't be dogmatic in the sense that let's say you're a certain kind of investor. Let's say you're a value investor. Let's say you're a trader. Don't just pick that one thing and then hope that thing will bring you through thick and thin. There are certain styles, there are certain tools that suit the situation a lot better. So know about all these tools and see whether they fit you in that particular environment.
Okay, so to be flexible and adaptable. Hann, your main lesson?
I think it differs depending whether you're an employee or a small business owner. I think for everyone, one thing is certain, it's no better time to build that cash buffer, right? That emergency fund. If you don't have it, build it fast, so I agree we can. But for employees, I think it's an interesting time for you to shine, right? You're on this webinar, so you're digitally native, or at least digitally interested, right? Now's your time to shine, right? If you're an employee, can you demonstrate two things? One, can you demonstrate your value in a troubled time for your employer? Second, can you demonstrate higher productivity from being online rather than being in person at the office, right? The future is remote, right? Well, not fully, but the future will be certainly more remote than it is today, or it was yesterday. If you can demonstrate high productivity, that's a surefire way to increase your potential earnings, potential income going forward in your primary job, right? So that's key for employees. And for employers, I mean, there's all kinds of kind of helpful things for employers. But the one thing I'll add, since we're in a Co-labs call, is that perhaps you want to rethink your space, right? I'm an SME owner myself. I'm seriously rethinking how we look at office space and what we actually need.
Great. Can you move over to Co-labs where I am at? Lovely. I love it so much. Yeah.
So that's all.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. And Aisha.
I think the main things that have come at this pandemic, for me anyway, I think from speaking to people and my readers and my people, you can't just rely on your employer for your source of income. And I know this is a hard truth to face, but sometimes businesses need to make decisions that's going to protect the business. It's not personal. So you need to protect your interests and you need to find a way to have a secondary income, right? Even if it's like selling clothes on Facebook Marketplace. I made $700 selling clothes on Facebook Marketplace. My point is, don't just, I completely agree that you need to be dedicated to your job. Everything you do, try and do the best you can. But don't put all your eggs in one basket. So you need, for me, don't just rely on your employer. And number two is, I think there's two types of people that will emerge from this pandemic, from my experience speaking to people. People who are victims and they say, this sucks. It's such a shame this happened. The government, rah, rah, rah. Or people that say, how can I pivot and make the best of this? And I'm going to use my mum as an example as a small business owner. She has a little bakery and she sells cakes face to face in her little bakery. The pandemic wiped out that customer base. She could have said, okay, this is it. This is my fate. Or what she did, she learned, I saw her, this traditional Malaysian woman sat there trying to learn Facebook marketing. She set up a website and she started selling online. And my point is, see this either as a problem or an opportunity. And I think since you guys are coming here, your mindset is that you're already investing your time. So you're already halfway there, guys. So now you just need to take that one step forward.
Yeah, I just like to add on that because I have a financial planning team or financial services consultants working under me. A new batch of them started their work in the COVID-19. And it was just amazing how they adapted. Or, it's very difficult in my line if you don't meet face to face to be able to engage with people, but they managed to do it really well. And so for those who are here, you're already interested in finances, maybe one of the ways to increase your secondary income is to talk to me and how we can work together on this one. So we've come to the end of the questions. The host, do we still have time for some questions?
Yes, we do.
Yes, great. So I'm going to pick a few questions. There's a question from Ria, and she's saying, is it advisable for investors to diversify or re-optimize the current portfolio? So this is a little bit more technical now. What are some key criteria that investors should consider before they make any changes? I'm just going to open this time. Who wants to answer?
Ken?
Ken, you're muted. You need to unmute.
So being the investment guy, I think it's actually a very, very trying time to actually look at your portfolio. So it really depends on whether you are up or down in your emotional state. So if you are down, look at what you've learned. Was it really a mistake or was it down by design? Maybe you're taking a very high risk portfolio by design, on purpose. And if it's down, maybe it's on its way to recovery. If you're really down and you don't know what to do about it, just ask yourself, do I know what I'm holding on to? If you really don't know what you're holding on to, just sell it because you probably went in for the wrong reasons and you want to start afresh. You want to start on the right footing. Like I said before, don't chase the dragon. If you chase the dragon throughout the last year, basically you would have gone from Bitcoin to gold to Tesla to rubber gloves. And you probably would not have gotten all of it. And you would have gone, oh, I wish, I could have, I should have. So just start afresh. Go into a diversified portfolio. And by diversify, you should have bonds, stocks, gold, a little bit of REITs or real estate, so that overall you can hold on for the long term. By long term, I don't mean 1 year. By long term, I don't mean 3 years. I mean 5 to 10 years. Because what you want is to be in a situation where it's comfortable for you to hold on. Oh, my portfolio is down 5%, 10%, big deal. I'm in it for the long term, and I'm also investing in a recurring basis, so it's perfectly fine. If you're up on the other hand, let's say you manage to catch the dragon and you are up massively and you think that you want to diversify or reoptimize, look at whether your portfolio is already out of balance. Maybe the things that have done very well for you have actually done very, very well or too well already, so you're feeling very nervous. You can actually take some risk off the table, take off your capital, and actually invest in something very safe to kind of like secure those gains. So you might want to sell some of those rubber gloves and put it in some bonds, or put it in gold. If let's say you did very well with Bitcoin, at a certain point, it is very risky. You want to take some off the table, put it in some consumer staple stocks or some bonds. I just think overall, just starting with a diversified portfolio is a really good way to go, because it's not good to switch around, and it's not good to chase the dragon. So ultimately, diversified portfolios have also shown to go down less during tough periods like this, and therefore have better cumulative returns over the long term. So don't think that diversification is like just a tool for people who are very basic, very, very simple. It's actually a very sophisticated tool executed if it's well done.
I got something to say about that. Like when I talk to my clients about diversification, I'm more interested in their risk profile. Like, are you afraid when markets gets volatile? Like if the market went down 20%, can you sleep at night? And if you can't, then perhaps you are what we call a more conservative investor, and so your portfolio is made in such a way that could be 80% conservative funds like bonds and then some in money market, and then only 20% in equities, for example. And that does not really change unless there's a change in your circumstance. So in a situation like when market goes down during the pandemic, right? So your bond portion would be growing more than 80%. And then at some point, maybe in April, you might switch some of that out to balance. The 20% has shrunk to maybe 10, for example, and then you go and buy some equities. So that's more of the rebalancing that we do with our clients that will help you in your portfolio. So, but the main thing is how do you feel about investments? Are you a conservative investor or are you an aggressive investor? And that will help you manage your portfolio better. Yeah, so that's one. Anybody has anything else to say? No? Then we should, any more time?
Yes, we do have some more time for maybe another question.
Okay, there's a question. What do you guys think about investments in properties? And is it primary? Do you think primary is better or secondary is better?
I guess I'll say something quick here, which is depends on what you're going to properties for, right? Like if you're looking to buy a primary home, right, somewhere for you to live, your abode, then there's no better or worse, right? Just what's your personal preference, and make sure you get it at the right price, etc. And you structure your debt accordingly, get the lowest interest debt you can get, right? But in terms of investments, I think yet again, there's no such thing as primary is better than secondary. I think here's an example of what I mean. Assume I'm a person that goes out and says, oh, you must buy, developer build only. Forget about subsale, forget about secondary. But yet, I walk into a showroom and I buy something which is above market value, right? And yet I could have walked across the road for my neighbor's house and bought something below market value because maybe he's looking to move very quickly, or he's looking to move countries, and he's kind of a desperate seller in that sense, right? So for me, there's no such thing as this whole thing is better than this whole thing, right? It's all about first, your individual circumstance. Are you buying to live or invest? And then second, what are you buying above or below market value? I think that's regardless whether it's subsale or primary, there is a market value for property.
Okay, I have suddenly realized there's a lot of questions, so maybe we'll just have one person answer each of these questions. I have the next question from Anita Chakrabarti. Hi, Anita, because she used to be my lecturer at Nottingham University when I did my master's. She asked, bond funds are not covered by PIDM. Does it make a difference in terms of bond funds? I suppose she probably means that, why bond funds then? Why not just FD? Because that's covered by PIDM.
I would say, actually, a lot of things are not covered by PIDM. Only deposits are covered by PIDM. Even ASB is not covered by PIDM. Yeah. So it's not about zero risk and then 100% risk. It's not black and white. It's all the shades of grey in between, because there are things that are very low risk as well. You are taking some risk. By definition, everything you do has risk. It's just whether you can control it or not. So basically, if you're looking at bond funds, even if it's not guaranteed per se, you're looking at something that is very low risk. And in the environment now with FDs being so low at an all-time low of like 2%, I think bond funds, especially those who have some government bonds in them as well, is a good way to go, because then you can go from 2% in FDs to basically 4 to 5 in a bond fund after fees. So be comfortable with some risk, but it's about knowing it, right? It's not just about wanting everything to be guaranteed, because very few things are. If it's guaranteed, basically the returns are very, very poor.
I agree. I would like to add on what Ken said about FD 2% and say bond 5. So the difference of 3% looks really tiny, but if you've been saving for like the beginning of your career and then you keep on saving, that difference could be a difference of 100%. Like, your money could be 2x from if you had put in FD. Just for us to note. AI Chan asked this question. Stocks, forex trading, Bitcoin, blockchain exchanges are high-risk investment. What kind of percentages should we be looking in to put into these kind of investments if you have spare cash?
I think very little. So I think it really also depends what you're doing, right? Because if you're looking at Bitcoin, I would say your 1% of your net worth is plenty, right? It's not very clear what the use case of Bitcoin is. Just be honest, it's all about speculation for now, whether one day it'll go to the moon or not. So just put 1% in there. That 1% is plenty. If your net worth is 1 million, 10,000, 20,000 is plenty. So when it comes to forex, also I would say that unless you really know what you're doing, be very careful, because there are a lot of FX gurus out there selling software, selling lectures, and they will cost a lot. And then the first lecture you go to, which probably costs you 5,000 to begin with, he says, wait until you hear a second lecture, which is like 8,000, 10,000, and then I'll teach you the real kung fu, right? So FX trading is a deep and murky kind of thing. But if you really know what you're doing, I think you should definitely expect more than 20%, because if you look at a decent China fund over the last few years, the average return won't be 20%, but in a good year, a China fund could give you 15-20%. So if you're taking FX risk and you're probably looking at leverage, firstly, be very, very, very careful. Secondly, you should expect more than 20%.
Can I just also add that, when I advise my clients that are in debt, a lot of them have actually got into debt because they invested in things they don't understand and they wanted quick returns. I know that we get this in Malay, we feel gatal with our money, we want to invest, right? But I say that FX and, things which are, Bitcoin, I'm sure there are people out there that have made a lot of decent money out of it, but more people have lost, right? So until you really understand, I would say personally for me, I kind of stay clear until I really understand that product. Are you willing to invest hours of your time fully understanding that product, and also invest in money that you can lose? I'd say with that kind of product personally.
Absolutely. Thank you for that one. We come to the next question by Lee Kai Han. So for university students, we have very little amount of money, and we have very, well, according to him, low risk tolerance, which is different from what you guys said just now. But what is the recommended form of investment for, say, university student, and the percentage of split of earnings when we first get our salary?
I guess I'll take the second part first, and then I'll pass the investments, because we already talked about that kind of.
Yeah.
Maybe Ken and Aisha got something else to say. So in terms of the split, I think there is no recommended or not recommended, right? It's as much as you can manage. It's as much as you manage from two angles. The first is as much as you can manage, given how you want to live your life. So if I'm starting out a job and I'm earning a salary, the question is, hey, how much do I save? As much as you can manage, right? Everybody has desires, right? And first you get to your desired level and you save as much as you want, or as much as you can. And once even you live how you want to live, there's some savings to be made. So just keep that in mind. The first thing to remember, as much as you can manage, most people say 10%, but why should you limit yourself to 10%
exactly.
when you can manage more, right? And there's all kinds of rules out there, but ultimately is as much as you can manage, given that you have that desire to save for your future, whatever that purpose is, right? And despite even already saving, and while you're spending, you can actually save money while you're spending too. So just keep that in mind. We've got all kinds of tips and tricks that you can do that at RinggitPlus, so you can come and check it out. But long story short, you can even save while you're spending, not just save while you're saving.
Oh, this is the part where you mean the painless savings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
so
good.
here's a quick example, right? You're going to buy a laptop. You're going to buy it anyway. I'm not telling you to go and buy a laptop. You were going to do it anyway. you should use a 0% ETP. Why? Because that's basically free money, right? Rather than going out there and just paying cash or one time on your credit card, figure out a way to do it with zero interest, and you can make that interest somewhere else. So that's an example of how you save while you spend.
Great. Okay. Who's dying to say something?
I'm not dying. I just think from a grad's perspective, I mean, yes. I have siblings, and sometimes you can get overwhelmed as a grad. You're like, what is the first step? I mean, at the very least, I would say they say pay yourself first, and they mean by when your salary comes in, at least 20% put away. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do more than 20%. Example, because I haven't been traveling, last month I saved 44%. Is that high? Is that low? I don't know, but it's above 20%. Start with 20. If you can do more, great. But this saving is a journey. Some people, they get put off by saving because they think that they can't enjoy life. You can still have your wants that you can spend on, but start first by saving, and then you can spend after.
I think about enjoying life in its totality. I am 25 years old, and in the blink of an eye, I am old, right? It's so fast. And thanks, Ken. But I'm going to be retired not so long from now. So I want to make sure that in my golden years, that it's really golden. And maybe I invite everyone to think about your life and enjoyment in terms of its totality now and in the future. So your future self's going to want money to live on. And if we think about the mathematics of we work for 30 years? 40 years? We retire for 40 years maybe? I mean, we're going to live to 80, right? 90 maybe by the time we get to our time to retire. Does that mean 40 years working, you need to save 50%? Maybe. But if you invest and you take the time to learn about these, you may not need to save 50%. Maybe you just need to save 20, and that's going to work for you. So take the time to find out these things. All our websites have this kind, information. You should just check it out too. Okay, so the next question is from Elena. This is about insurance. What type of insurance should individuals consider at this point? I'm not sure whether it makes a difference, but what are the basic things to think about before committing to a policy? Maybe Han would like to say something?
Yeah. I mean, we cover insurance quite in a lot of detail, and I think the key thing with most people is that they forget that insurance should be and it should always be about protection first. Right. Time and time again, I'm sure Ken has heard this also, right? That people tout insurance as an investment scheme. Now, there are some investment schemes which are tied to protection, and that's fine. But just remember, right? You can actually create insurance investment scheme by buying protection policies and investing in things such as StashAway, such as the unit trust, etc. for lower fees than you would do in that big package of insurance plus investment. So the thing to remember about insurance is you got to figure out how much you need to protect first, and then go with what's the cheapest that is out there. Why? Because money, the color of money is the same. It doesn't matter which. If I'm protecting 10,000 ringgit, I'm protecting 10,000 ringgit. So get that protection for the cheapest as possible. So when you think about protection, what are you protecting? I'm protecting income. What does that mean? If I do not have income, i.e. I'm dead, or incapacitated, or ill, I need to protect against those things. And ultimately, insurance is about protection. If you want to make money and you want to invest, there are many ways to do that outside of insurance, right? Insurance is for protection. That's the number one thing I tell people, right? The word insurance is protection. It is not investment.
That's good. I think we're coming to the end of our segment. It's already 12:10. Anybody else has anything to say with regards to insurance? Because we only tackled that one question now. Anyone else?
I'll say, with regards to insurance, it is a very expensive product if you go for those ILPs and savings plans. I think there's also a distinction between there's those schemes that are being locked up and those that are not locked up. I'd be very, very, very careful about the ones
Could you explain? So ILP would be investment-linked products, and what do you mean by locked up and not locked up?
Yeah. So for example, there are some savings plans that make you commit to multi-year investments or deposits that promise a certain return. And ultimately, after all said and done, the returns are still around FDs, and you have committed to something that is almost like, a decade long, sometimes even longer. So separate the two. Health is health. term is term or life is life. That is one side, and then invest the rest.
That's a great saying. Yeah. Yes. I'd like to thank everybody for this time. If you like this kind of sessions, do let the Co-labs people know, or write something on the meeting chat, and maybe we'll meet again in the next session. Maybe something more advanced or whatever that you wish. Write to us. Let us know. I really thank Aisha for coming in with us. Ken, Han, great meeting you guys. We're going to have coffee someday, please. And Co-labs for hosting this event. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.